the Bookyard podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about nice things, but on this Bookyard podcast, we explore the world of writing and publishing. I'm your host, Adiola Sanola, and I have a lot to share with you. So sit down or lie back, relax, and learn some tips about your self book publication. So, today on this podcast, we're going to be talking about the strategies that can help you self publish your first book. So, having listened to my first episode, I gave you a quick run through of how, I used my poetry book as a tester to actually tell myself that, you can actually do it. And I did it. And, I was very excited. So, today, I'm going to be using my novel as an example of the strategies that, that can help you, self-publish your books. So when after publishing my poetry book and I saw it in the post, I was really very happy. It's called the stage one, a collection of poetry by Adiola Sonola. So I thought to myself, okay, now you've learnt the process. Now you need to then test publishing your novel. So I wrote this novel in 2003, and obviously because I wasn't trained as a creative writer or anything, I didn't feel confident in actually publishing the book because I thought, oh God, people are going to laugh at you. You're just a solicitor. Being a solicitor, I'm very confident. Anywhere I go to and I'm talking about law, in my area of expertise, you cannot fault me. But when it comes to my writing, it's like, oh my God, you don't have the skills. Sometimes I talk myself down. But I said to myself, this novel, you're going to go out. Nobody's going to stop you from publishing it. So, again, I did my research. Research is very, very important in what you do because what I've realized along the line is that when you talk to people about what they are doing, it doesn't even have to be in writing. They lack knowledge. And when you lack knowledge, you can never progress in life. It's just as simple as that. So, for example, I feel like eating X and Y. If you have not been to a particular restaurant before where that food has been served, the only way you can find out is research. It could be asking friends, it could be going on the internet, it could be reading a book about restaurants and food. You cannot do anything without having the necessary information. You need to just take that away. If you don't take anything away from this episode, you need to take away the fact that you must find out about the things you need to do so you don't look stupid. So when I was then going to publish my novel, I was like, okay, you had a tester for the poetry book. And for some reason, I thought I didn't want to use Author House again. I'm going to try something else because it's part of the process. What you have to realize is being creative is natural. Everything that comes after that is process and procedure, which I hate. But if you're published author, you really do not have a choice but to follow all of this process. It's time consuming, but you can't give up. Yeah. So after doing my research, I found another company apart from Author House. So I emailed them to say, hello, my name is Adela Sonola. I've just written this novel. I'd love to publish it, and I'd like you to help me put it on Amazon. And it was a lady this time that owns the company. She responded and said, oh, yeah, we'll be able to help you, but you need to send me your book first because we just don't publish everything that gets sent to us. We're going to read it. If we're happy with the content, we will help you publish it. So I said, fine. So she sent me an email. I then sent her my manuscript. After sending her my manuscript, it took her a while to read. I think it took about um, 1 or 2 days. She read it and then emailed me back to say, oh, yeah, I've read it. We're happy to publish the book for you. This is how much it's going to cost you. And then she sent me a long, email of, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. After this is what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. So I said, fine. So she then said, oh, is this your final manuscript or would you like to send me an updated version? So I said to her, it's my final manuscript, get on with it. And that was exactly what she did. So initially this lady, she sent me a long report about my book why she felt, it would be good on Kindle and on Amazon, and the process that she was going to take in helping me and how much I was going to pay. And if I wanted to pay instrumentally, how much that would be. If I wanted to pay everything, I'll try that. That was how much it was going to be. Obviously, I paid by installments. So because I didn't have the money up front, that's why I'm whispering, right? So after agreeing the payment terms, she then said, yeah, she was going to get to work, right? But I'll take a step back to just tell you how I got to being confident in actually saying, you know what, this novel can't go out now. So because I talked myself down, because I said to myself I wasn't a creative writer, this book is no good. You know how it is, when you don't think you have expertise in something. I then resolved within myself that the best way to actually solve that problem was to send my novel to a Writers and Authors Association. They call them in England. And what they do is that when you send them the manuscript, you tell them the genre. So it's an association of authors, I think, producers, and quite a lot of people that write who are established and known in the market. And what they do is that you pay them and they send your manuscript to someone who is established in that area. And the person comes back to you to tell you whether your book is good or bad, right? So that was number one. But before that time, I actually sent my book to this lady who I met a long time ago. And I don't know if she's still a creative writer lecturer, but at that time, she was a creative writer lecturer. I actually sent my book to her, my manuscript, to say, look, sis, I want to publish this book. I think I have the gift of writing, but I'm really worried because I don't have expertise in writing and I don't want to, diss myself when this is published. So read it. Let me know what you think. So she read it and then came back to me. We actually spoke for a while over the telephone. She was like, oh my God, you're so talented. Your story is so beautiful. However, she felt that the geographical setting in my book was really flawed in the sense I just described it. She said I needed to describe it in such a way that whoever was reading it could actually feel they were there. She said if I could work on that, then that book was fine. So I worked on it. She said use a place you can imagine, and that was exactly what I did. I went to some areas where I lived, drove into the woods, went into the forest because I needed to visualize what I was going to write. And after doing that, I was happy, but then sat on the boat because she kept calling me. I was like, oh, I'm busy, I've got young kids, blah, blah, blah. After a while, she left me know. I think she thought I wasn't serious. But when I felt I was ready, after going through that first process of somebody actually looking at it, I then sent it to the Author and Writers Association. I'm actually a member now. Anybody can be a member, just pay them. And they said, oh, pay X amount of money, which I did. So it went to some guy who is an author. He published a few books. I can't remember his name now because this was a long time ago. He then came back with a report on my manuscript. He said, oh, you've got a very good book. If you do this and that, you'll be ready for publication. And he gave examples within my manuscript that if I was the one writing it, he said, this is how I would write it. So was talking about passive voice, and what's the other one? Active voices within your book, and some descriptions and all of that. I actually, when I got the reply, I thought to myself, this is money well paid because the report was very good. And I felt that it was something I would have gained if I went into to creative writing school, the nuggets and the tips and the bits. So it was really good. So after I got that report, I went back to the manuscript and then I changed things, revised things, almost rewrote it, almost. And it was quite interesting because it said my chapters 1 to 4. He said if he was writing my book, my chapters 1 to 3 will go, and he will start my chapter 1 on chapter 4. I thought that was interesting. So that was exactly what I did. So my chapters 1 to 3 disappeared, and my book, chapter 4, became chapter 1. And what he said in the book was that chapters 1 to 3, I should just distribute them around the novel because I wrote it as you usually write, law. when you're drafting maybe witness statements or your logbook, where you pull a bit of background information, and then you then go, into the real juice of what you're writing about. So I think my chapters 1 to 3, they were quite sort of boring. So I took his advice because I paid for it, and I those chapters disappeared, and I started my book from chapter 4, which is now my chapter 1. So when I rewrote the book, I then sat on it for a while, and then that was when I went on the internet to say, after testing my approachable, I was like, "Yeah, you're ready to go." So this lady then got my manuscript, and as she was working on it in the background, she emailed me the details of our graphics guy, and said to me to work with them and describe exactly what I wanted to see on the cover page. And I think that's a problem also with self publication. You cannot get away from anything. People are calling you day, night. You have to approve things, you have to read things. If it was a traditional publisher, they would have several people within their departments to take these things off your hand. But I didn't have the luxury. So it's really been an interesting journey. So yeah, I worked with the cartoon. I worked with the illustrator, the graphics guy, and when he came back with the first draft, I almost dropped off my chair. I'm like, "What's this?" It was a cartoon character that I drew. I'm like, "Why would you draw that? Where was I in my description to you? This is not a cartoon. It's a book. I want a guy, a boy there." So I said, "I want a boy walking towards a gate because the book is called Beyond the Hagel Gate. Is my first novel." In a three series episode. When I say series, is books 1, 2, 3 under the trilogy of the Adventures of Zogi. So I said to him, I want to say a boy walking towards a gate because it's called Beyond the Hager Gate, and I want to see the back of the boy because at that point I wasn't sure about a lot of things about Zogi, who is the main character. So I said, in all of my books, is the back of him I want to see, not the front. So he said, okay, I'll go and rework that. I said, but scrap that cartoon. My book is not about, whatever. It could be made into a Disney film. I'll be really glad, even if it was a cartoon. But that was it. So he came back, tweaked it, and we went back and forth, and he sort of agreed it. And if you look on Amazon and you see the first edition of my book, you will see a little boy with a cat walking towards the gate. And they asked me about colors. I was a bit confused because I just thought, just do your work. But the thing about all of these people is that they don't work in isolation. And what they don't want to do also is provide to you what you won't be happy with. So they ask you about everything, which can really be a headache. And yeah, so that was it. So when we approved that, agreed that, the lady then sent me the final manuscript, told me to read, make corrections. We went back forth, back forth, and the corrections were made. And she was like, okay, your book now is going to be uploaded on Create Space. So that time it was Create Space that people were using, and you'll get a Kindle in the post, and I'll send you your first hard copy in the post. And that was what happened. So she published it and sent me the hard copy. And I went on Amazon to look at my book, and I was very, very happy to see it. But I'm still waiting to make a lot of money from it. But when I see the book, it makes me happy and all of that. So that's working with an agent. So when you're not working with an agent, these are the strategies, and it's even more difficult because I have a children's book that I published myself without an agent, and that was difficult. So I've told you now that I've published 2 books with an agent in between, which meant that I relied on them to do certain things. I paid them for it. So if you don't have an agent, the things you have to do is that once you get your manuscript ready to that stage where you're really, really, really happy, you then email ISBN UK, is called Nelson, which I did because I wanted my own unique ISBN. When I looked into that, and this is about research as well, asking people or going on the internet to sort of do your research. So when I went on the internet, I found out that Nelson actually gives you your ISBN, and they could give you one, give you two. They sell them in blocks. So I bought a block of 100 ISBNs. So I have to write 100 books. And after buying that, so they give you sort of like an insight or information on how to use it. So I then use that for my children's book. I use the first, so it's a list of 100 ISBN. So I use the first one for it. And I still use someone to upload the book on Amazon because I'm not really techie, but then meant that I didn't pay as much money as I paid to the agents because I sort of cut out the in between and I thought I could do things myself. So after I got that, I sent the manuscript with my children's book. I had to get an illustrator, and that was difficult for me as well because I met a guy. We had a meeting at the British Library in London, and when I met him, I was like, well, this is my children's book. I need illustrations for it. And he told me it was going to be £100 per illustration. I'm thinking, what? How much is my salary? I'm not even making money from all of this. And I said to him, let me think about it. But by the time I got on the train and got home, I knew I definitely wasn't going to use the guy. So I emailed him to say, sorry, you're too expensive. I'm not going to use you. So I went on the internet and did a bit of research on, I just put African illustrators, and then this company came up. They're actually based in Nigeria, in Abuja. So I emailed them to say, look, when I was doing my research about that was why I typed in African children's book illustrators. I said, I found you. Are you able to walk and help me? And the lady was like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fine. We can help you. What we want you to do is send us samples of an illustration you would like to see, and then we'll get that back to you. If you're happy with what we've done, this is how much we charge you. And that was it. And within 2 days, they came. I was so excited. I was like, I can't believe I'm seeing my book in my, work in illustration. I was so excited. And they were so much cheaper than the guy I went to meet in the British Library in London who wanted to take £100 off me for illustrating my book. So I then engaged them. So they asked for the manuscript, which was my children's book. It's a poetry book, actually. It's called Little Angels. And it has a few poems in it as well. So they said for each poem, I needed to describe what I wanted to see within the illustration. You know, this was really challenging for me because remember that being a solicitor, my life is busy. And then at that time, I had three young children, and this is my brain buzzing, ideas wanted to come out. So I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But they said without that, it would be difficult. They said the illustrator's discretion could be used on occasions, but I needed to describe exactly. So I sat down and mapped everything out. So I'll say, poem one that, can you draw this person, blah, 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 two, three, four, five. And I did that until the end of the book. And but one interesting factor was that I remember that they came back to me at one point to say, okay, you said to us that you want all the illustration in this book to be reflective of you, which means that all the people in that book have to be black. But in some poems you talk about snow and all of that. I said, well, snow is white. You can't change that. But the person, the boy, the girl in the snow will be black. They say, okay, now we get you. So that was it. And they did a very good. I've never met them, never, but till today, I can't get over the fact that, you know, I just found them on the internet and I wasn't scammed. So that's why I say research is very important and always test what people are going to do for you. So, if you're going to use somebody's services, ask if they've done it before, where you can find their work, and, negotiate the price up front so you know exactly what you're getting. I won't lie to you, I've been scammed along the way. I don't think you can escape that. But I think if you listen to some of the things I say and the tips, you would learn and maybe avoid being scammed. Because if I've been scammed and you're listening to me, you shouldn't be scammed as well. But you can't trust people because in this world of self publication, I think I've only met one person in my life, and it's because the guy lives in England and he lives about 3 hours away from. He lives in Manchester, so I've worked with him for many years, you know. But when I've only met him twice. We've been working together now for almost like 10 years, and I've only met him. We just speak and we send emails to each other. So in the world of the self-publication that I've come from, you don't see anyone. So everything you do is based on trust. But then the thing is that you can trust people, or they can trust you. Can you trust them? So it's your judgment to make, but I'll leave that with you. So when you then get your ISBNs and you allocate it to your books accordingly, you get the book published. Once the book is published, you then go on Amazon and open a seller account, which I did. This was me testing variants to the two things I've done in the past. And then when you've done that, in UK, when you publish a book where you've been given ISBN numbers, you're supposed to send X amount of books, copies, to relevant organizations so they can keep them as books that have been published in UK. With my first publication, I didn't have to do that because I used an agent who did that on my behalf. My second publication, I didn't do that. The company I used had to do that on my behalf. But with the one that I tried by myself, buying this has been numbers, I had to then send the books. I think there were three copies. I sent so many off to all of these people that you had to send it to. But the thing is that when you buy your ISBN numbers from Nelson, it gives you the relevant information and exactly what you need to do. So there are quite a few email exchanges to say, oh, just to let you know, I've published this book. This is the ISBN number I use. This is the front page of the book. And then when you're sending it off to all the other companies as well that they've put in their information, the report, you then say, oh, my name is this. Please find here with, or please find enclosed. These copies have been published under this ISBN, and that's a process. And then you put it on Amazon. When it's on Amazon, it's like, yay, another milestone ticked off. So I was quite happy with that, and that is publishing without an agent. But when I say without an agent, because I'm not techie, I still use someone to put the books for me on Amazon because I just it gets too difficult for me when I have my laptop and I'm trying to load something. It just gives me a headache. So the things I can deal with, I deal with them. The things I can't deal with, I leave it with other people to do. But like I say, writing is about being creative, and creativity, the things that follow it are processes and procedures. If you are a self-published author, you cannot run away from these processes, and you have to spend money on them, um but I'm doing a course right now actually where I've learned so much. I'm going to be sharing some tips with you that if I knew those things maybe when I started my journey as self-publication, as a self-published author, it would really really have helped me. But just stay tuned in. So all the things I'm learning on the course, I'll share with you. So this is Adela Sanola again. This is the Bookyard podcast. Do not forget to go on my Bookyard podcast channels on YouTube, on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, and Sticker, I think it's called. I hope I pronounced that well. Okay, so this is Adela Sanola. I'm going to see you next time. Enjoy. If you have any questions, just send it to me via the link below, or just type it in and I'll deal with some of your questions, and hopefully I'll be able to help because I've published 7 books now, self-publishing, and I'm writing others in the background because my brain buzzes all the time. Last night I couldn't sleep. There were so many things in my brain, just we need to get out, we need to get out, right? Also, immediately I got up this morning, I just dumped them in a book. I'm so happy. It's a children's book I'm working on, and then I'm working on the fourth series in the adventures of Zogi, so the fourth book. So that's me. My brain is just always busy. So that's why I say that my inspiration, I get them from ideas that get dumped on me from heaven above, and from the things I see. So this is me. I hope you've learned one or two things on this episode 2. Do not be afraid to test things, and it's in testing that you become an expert and things get better for you. You learn from, mistakes and experiences. You move on. There's nothing you can do about it, but that's life. But seeing your books, like I say, always, always will give you that ultimate joy of having achieved something and leaving a legacy for yourself and your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, your friends, everyone. So thank you. Bye bye. This is me, Adela Simola. See you next time. Bye.